guys, welcome back to my channel. And for those of you new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. I appreciate all of you so very much. Today I am doing my next installment in my Palette Roulette series. We are on episode 76. And for those of you who need more information about it, I do have my playlist linked down below. But baseline, I let an app choose a palette for me. I use it all week. I come back to you. I show you swatches. I tell you about my feelings on the palette. Decide whether I'm going to keep the palette or not. Show you some pictures of the looks I did. And then we pick another palette. Simple as that. Super fun. Episode 76, y'all. Kind of crazy. It's a little bit crazy to me. Today we are doing the Huda Beauty Ruby Obsessions palette. This palette, it ranks in at 4.3 stars on Sephora.com. There are 4,756 reviews that equate out to that 4.3 stars. And then on Huda Beauty, it is a 4.9 star product. There are some poor reviews on there. I think I talked about this in another video where it's kind of sketch to me when there's not poor reviews on their own website, and there are 227 reviews. I'm not sure that it is on this palette in particular. This is just one of many of her 9-pan kind of monochromatic shadow palettes that she put out. These are, like I said, 9 shades. There are 9 shades in here, and each one of these pans has 0.04 ounces of product for a grand total of 0.35 ounces in the palette. Like I said, this is one of many. I think there are 11 different little obsession palettes that you can get. I have this one and the Mauve Obsessions and the Coral Obsessions. I'm not a huge monochromatic look kind of person, but I did find enough variation in this palette to create some less than monochromatic looks from the palette. I'm not wearing makeup a whole lot these days, y'all, so there's not that many pictures. I think you have 3, including this one today, but this one today actually turned out a little more purple from the Ruby Obsessions palette. And I just used this dark one here as the baseline of most of the color in my shadow look. Note that it does have a nice size mirror for such a tiny palette, and it is about the size of your hand. It does travel well. I only know this because I have traveled with the other two, but it does come with a nice like plastic-esque sleeve that you can push it into as well if you don't want to travel with it because you're afraid of the magnetic clasp coming undone, but it is a rather nice magnetic clasp. This is one of the Precious Stone Obsession collection, and in this collection there are 5. There's Ruby, Topaz, Sapphire, Emerald, and Amethyst. These were supposed to be limited edition, but they're still out for sale. There are 4 mattes as spoken on the website. There are 4 mattes in here and 5 duochromes. I don't think that any of them really perform as a duochrome, if I have to be honest. I'm not certain what they're grasping at for duochrome in nature. I think these two might be a little duochrome-y because this is a black base with kind of a purple glitter in it, so it does kind of shift purple. And this one is like rose with kind of a gold glitter in it, so it does kind of shift a little more like orange. But I wouldn't say any of them in particular are duochrome, honestly. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're duochrome, and they are counting this one also as one of their duochrome metallics, but this is more of a satin, honestly. It's definitely not a shimmer. The mattes in this palette were a little bit drier than her other Obsession palettes. I don't know if you guys can see, I'll get close up for you, but this red I used an awful lot, and it is just all over the pans beside it. So there's a whole lot of powderiness in these pans. But they performed really well. They blended out well. They were super buildable. If you didn't automatically get the opacity that you wanted in the tone the tone that you wanted out of like first application, definitely go in, build it up a little bit. Some of them definitely had to be built up to get the opacity that I wanted from them, but they were super powdery, but really, really blendable. They performed really, really well. The shimmers here worked better packed on, especially this one here, packed on with the use of your finger or a wet, dense synthetic brush more so than anything else. I think a lot of that is just because they're a little bit more like, almost like silicone-y. They move around a lot in the pan, so like just be super careful. It reminds me a little bit of the ABH Norvina palette, how it has that like pink and purple in it. The first time I went into that palette, it kind of dipped right in. I thought it was going to pan. Shadow the first time I used it, just because I wasn't used to the kind of like movable shimmery formula that existed in that. I think that they are a little more silicone based than some of her other shimmers are. You have to have a slightly heavier hand working with these 4 shimmers than you do a lot of her other shimmers. You have to kind of dig it in. I know I put my brush in and kind of wiggled it around and kind of pushed in at the same time. Not like super heavy, but if you're light-handed, this isn't going to be a palette that works for you. The shimmers are also super chunky and they fall out no matter how heavy-handed you are with it or light-handed you are with it. They fall out all over your face. So I'm just gonna go there. And when you blend a matte into it, which it blends really well actually, the only one I had the problems with is this one here. When you blend a matte into it, they tend to fall out even more so, like all of it falls out onto as you're blending. It's kind of annoying more so than anything else, but you just go back in, pack the pretty back in, and you're good. It worked best over a primer. I would say I used a white primer almost every day with it, every time I used it, because I wanted the colors to pop. But it performs, even with a white primer, it performs very orange and very pink toned, more so than it does red toned. I really, when you think ruby, you think like deep, dark blood red tones, and this one is just definitely more oranges and pinks. I was actually quite surprised at the purple look I got out of today, and I think a lot of that has to do with this guy being a black base. So I just, did a really intense-ish lid color and then started blending it out with this color here and then this color here, and it just came out purple all the way up. So it didn't stain my eyes, which I'm super thankful for. A lot of red shadows do stain your eyes, but they're not a cruelty-free company, so they aren't using, the dyes that you have to use when you are a cruelty-free company to make the reds that cause it to have that staining factor. They're not having to do that. And I just really liked it. I just really liked it a lot. So I am going to go ahead and swatch them for you. None of these Obsession palettes have names for the shadows. There's just not enough room in here to put names. It's just pans stacked on top of each other, and there's not any names on the back of the palette. But the palette just has, this gem on here because it is part of the Gemstones collection. It says Huda Beauty Ruby Obsessions. I love that it also says Ruby Obsessions on the spine because I can set it up like this to store it and I can see that. And then on the back of the palette, it just tells you its shelf life is 12 months, and then there's an ingredient list, and then it says peel here to get the rest of the ingredient list. You can peel this back to get the rest of the ingredient list. This is not all encompassing. It doesn't tell you everything that's in this palette in this little tiny blurb, but you can also go online and find those as well. So we're just going to go through the rows. So the first row is this one here, which is a pale pink matte. And then we have this one, which is a rich red metallic. It's got a nice like cool blue undertone. I guess that is kind of duochrome. It didn't perform like that on the eye though. I did use this color an awful lot. I used both of these colors an awful lot in my eye looks, and I don't recall my eye being that duochrome. And then this one, which is a light copper pink metallic, and this one is a little less duochrome than I thought it was initially, but it does kind of sway a lot more. I don't know. I used it a lot in my inner corner. I didn't use it in my brow bone. I thought that it was a little too orange for my brow bone. I did use that pale pink matte in my brow bone an awful lot. As a matter of fact, it's in my brow bone today. I think it's a really beautiful color for blending stuff out, and it's got a decent pigmentation, but not an overwhelming pigmentation. It's gonna get along with any color that you put down, and it's going to help blend it out. The second row is this deep red matte. This guy had to be built up, and it's probably the dustiest in this palette as far as performance goes. It creates the most powder. The second shadow in that row is this one, and it is a medium purple pink metallic. It's kind of frosty. It is more creamy than the other ones in the palette. It's definitely got a little bit more of a slip to it. It performs best with a dampened, stiff synthetic sponge or your finger. The other two in the first row, I got away with using just a regular brush with them, and they performed really well. And this is a deep plum metallic. It's got a little bit of an amber shift. It is in my eye look today. You guys can see that. A little bit of a amber shift to it. It is a little more firm, but still creamy, if that makes any sense. Also better applied with your finger. I wouldn't even go for a damp brush with this one. If you use a damp brush, it's just gonna look black in your eye look. Definitely apply it with your finger and tap it in, or like kind of like massage it into your eye look, because otherwise it's just gonna look black. All right, last row is this one. It is a bright coral. It's a satin. They are trying to say it's a shimmer, but it's definitely not a shimmer. It's definitely a satin. A satin. Then we have a medium coral matte. This one was a bit powdery. It had to be built up to get the opacity or the tone that's actually in the pan. This is, I'm not sure if you guys can see, but that is kind of a little bit lighter than what the pan actually holds. So, and then this last one is a dark medium pink matte. So that is the last row. All right, there's all the shades in the palette up close. That is all 9 shades. The 2 shimmers in the first row and the 2 shimmers in the second row are supposed to be duochromes. I don't really see that they're super duochrome. This shade here is also typified as a shimmer in the duochrome shimmer at that. On the website, it performs more like a satin, I would say. But that is all 9 of the shadows. You guys can see that it is mostly pink and orange in nature, minus that, you know, really dark one. I'd say the mattes in this palette performed really well with or without a primer. They blended beautifully. All of them blended beautifully. The mattes, anyways. This one, even though it is, in my opinion, a satin shade, it blended really, really very well as well. I put it into my crease, which I don't typically do with satins ever. This one is a little bit more grippy in the pan though than the other shadows, even more so grippy than the glitters in this palette. You are going to have an immense amount of fallout with the shimmers in this palette. You will also see a slight bit of fallout with the mattes in here just because of the powderiness of it, but most of the powder does remain in the palette. And the worst one, the biggest culprit, is that red, that big red. It's not a super versatile palette, but I did see a little bit of versatility with it. I think mostly because it performed more pink and orange than it did red. Like I could pull a lot of different, like I really could pull a lot of different looks out of this if I wanted to, that range from really super wearable to nighttime looks if I wanted to. I could see that definitely happening with this. You could definitely go in with those peaches and this all over the lid and have a nice wearable eye look for work if you aren't allowed to wear something like this. So, which I like about it. I give it props because most of the time with these, you know, monochromatic palettes, there isn't a whole lot of versatility with them. So, we're going to be super quick today. This video is going to be super fast. I think my camera is a little bit too close. So I'm packing things up and I just remembered, I forgot, I was going to tell you guys, the best part about this palette is that I can use it for root coverage. Do you see this part? Yep, I didn't use this palette to cover that section of my hair. But do you see this? Yes, I used the palette. It blends in pretty perfectly. I was pretty proud of myself for even trying it. So yeah. That'll stay on top of my vanity for that reason alone during this crazy isolation. Peace. For those who don't know, I have a Samsung Note 9 and I just pulled an app out of our Play Store called the Decide Now app, and it is just like a Wheel of Fortune app. And as we get new palettes in, I put them into this wheel, and as we use them, I pull them out of this wheel, and we just spin for a new one every week by pressing this button. Ooh, we got the ABH Carly Bible palette. This is a new palette that I haven't even used. That seems like we're kind of down to those kind of palettes in my collection at this point in time. Even though there are still some on there that I have used that I can't figure out why it's not pulling. But I'm going to go get the Carly Bible palette. I'll be right back. This is the ABH Carly Bible palette. I have to be honest with you, when this first launched, I decided that I could not stand this packaging. I did not like it at all. It kind of reminds me of Holes in the Body. I'm a weirdo. But this is the palette. Again, it's not one that I have used yet, so I am really kind of excited to use it. It's very muted, but still looks fun. I am really drawn to this one right here, and this red right here. This is the palette that we'll go over next week. I'm so excited to use it, actually. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it enough that you're considering giving it a big thumbs up. It really does help us out here in YouTube Nation. I really hope that you liked it or me enough that you're also considering subscribing before you go. If you do, please don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you're notified every single time I upload. I do upload content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then every other Sunday as well. Please join me. I would love to see you guys down in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on the palette that we used last week. Let me know your thoughts on the palette that I'm about to use. P.S. The Huda Beauty Obsessions palette will be staying in my collection. I can't remember if I said that or not. And I'm excited to come back next week and talk to you guys about Carly Bible. And hopefully next week I'm starting a different work routine. Not quite going back into work yet, but starting a different work routine, so I'm kind of excited about it. Gives me purpose back in my day. Up until this point, I've been working from home, but kind of trying to pull things out to do them, so that I felt purposeful. Initially, we had a lot of education and whatnot. We still have a lot of education we can take, but now I'm starting a new, different kind of program at work, so I'm excited about it because I'll feel a little more purpose in my day. Today, I did all kinds of cleaning. I cleaned and decluttered every portion of my house upstairs. I've decided I'm a pack rat because even though I cleaned and decluttered, there wasn't much I wanted to get rid of. But now my dinner's here, so I am going to go. I hope that you guys have an amazing Monday, and thank you guys so very much for watching. Until next time. Bye, guys.